I was having a little bit of a fiddle around yesterday, you know, for my Formula V stuff, trying out different suspensions, and I saw this. That is proper McPherson strut looking suspension. You may not think that this is special, but previously, if you were to, for instance, run double wishbone, you would get something that looks like this, and this is basically double wishbone. You got a bit down here. I know this is really hard to see. This is just the collision mesh of how things actually work underneath the skin, and then you would have a wishbone at the top. And let's say, for instance, you went with something like multi-link. You would then get double wishbone again. But if you were to select, say, maybe something like torsion beam, you would get double wishbone again. So basically there was just two types of sort of suspension. There was either double wishbone or solid. But now, as you've seen, we can even get McPherson struts. So I want to see if all of them are done, or just for now, maybe McPherson strut. We'll see what we've got. Because previously you could go to double wishbone, because previously you could go to McPherson strut and save a little bit of weight. So for this, I made a bunch of the same car with just a different suspension. They all run the same setup, which is basically sport with a little reduced camber on the rear, and they all should be vaguely minimum height, which is sometimes a little bit higher for others. And if we go in and have a look at what suspension we got for double wishbone, we have double wishbone. Next one is multi-link, which is a different rear suspension. And I don't know about you, but that kind of looks like double wishbone still to me. But this is a different weird, almost square shape. But no, we do still have that here in double wishbone as well. So multi-link, by the looks of it, has not changed. McPherson strut. If we go in and have a look at the rear suspension, yeah, no, you don't have rear suspension McPherson strut unless it's rear engine. But these are all exactly the same, which is front engine. So looking at the front suspension, you can see that this is very much a triangle sort of shape here with its connection. Next car is push rod. Big F1 sort of stuff, this. And I mean, it looks a little bit wider, but that is still very much just double wishbone. And the big thing about push rod suspension is the fact that it moves weight inboard. As you can see here, this is the suspension, but all of these name things are vertices or nodes, and they are what give the vehicle and everything weight. So the weight is all still out on the outside. Then we have semi-trailing arm, which is very much an 80s sort of thing that made a little bit of a comeback with Ford. We have, semi-trailing arm is actually a thing. Interesting. We're going to see how all of these handle as well in a bit. Wow, that's a surprise that semi-trailing arm is actually semi-trailing arm. This is going to be quite interesting though, because semi-trailing arm in real life back in the 80s, this is a 1990s car, I don't know whether they're going to do this, but a lot of them were like really sketchy at oversteer. But more modern cars did it quite well in Ford and whatnot, so we'll have to actually test to see how it handles. Anyway, torsion beam is the very last one, very common on small cars, then you can get a very low boot. As you can see, the suspension is very low and is only high right here for the strut. But I am not seeing anything. Oh wait, hold on. There's a thing right here. Interesting. Let's go Control W on this one, go to the debug menu and turn the mesh invisible. And we have interesting. So they've actually simulated this one as well. That's fascinating. Now, you don't have to worry about things usually clipping with wheels and tires and whatnot. Collisions are a little bit different around different places. So I'm assuming that there's this and then there's some beams along here. We got Control B. Let's bring that up. Oof, all of those beams. Cycle through until we find stress. Okay. Now, our stress beams are going here. That's peculiar. Out to here, but what about these? It doesn't look like this is actually a torsional beam along here, because this is what twists under weight load. Let's grab a node, drag down. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they've done this, but still rather interesting. Or maybe it just does, these stress beams don't show torsional stress. Either way, I really want to see how the handling characteristics are different now. This is so exciting. I didn't know that they made this change. They just kind of snuck it under the radar. So now we're on to the testing part. We're actually going to see what handling differences have changed. So for this, we've got the G meter up, and we're going to start with double wishbone. There's only two things to keep in mind for all of these is some of these have a slight higher ride height due to how low they're allowed to go with said suspension, and McPherson strut, which I believe is this one here, is a front suspension difference. Everything else on every other car is double wishbone wherever I've not got the custom suspension. So how we're going to do this is we're going to have this set to 100 kilometers an hour. We're going to let that get up to speed, and then we're going to start turning and see what sort of G-forces we get at about 100 kilometers an hour, which will also include how able this vehicle is to keep its weight down evenly on all tires. And it looks like we're somewhere around 0.78, which isn't too bad. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find its maximum speed being able to corner at. So we're just going to pull it full hard to the left and just keep accelerating. It unfortunately wants to be right in the middle of gears, which is about 100 kilometers an hour at a G-force of about 0.77 on average. Do you know what I should be doing is airspeed instead? Frick, it's actually 82 kilometers an hour. Okay, interesting. So we'll give that, oh, now it says 83. We'll give it 83, whatever. Give it the benefit of the doubt. Multi-link seems to be maxing out at about 81-ish, 82-ish. Okay, we'll just put that down as 82, even though it's showing 81 right now. You get the idea. McPherson strut, and wow, that is actually genuinely faster. That's about 10 kilometers an hour faster for McPherson strut on front suspension. That is peculiar. It might have to do with weight, who knows? But that is a part of why you choose these sorts of things. 91, that's impressive. Now, how about push rod? The one that I have the highest hopes for, because it is the most expensive and generally is a race car sort of thing. Oh dear. This one is doing slower at about 82 kilometers an hour and pulling less G's. That's not good numbers. So, pushrod gets 0.7, we'll give it 0.78, even though it was less than that most of the time, at 81 kilometers an hour. That's not good. Now for semi-trailing arm. Get the feeling the only one that's done really good is McPherson strut, but that's front suspension, so that's a little bit different. Maybe there's some magic sauce going on there. Though semi-trailing arm is giving us a much higher speed. Our G-force, oh, I'm maxed out there at 0.81. That's a lot. So this one is we'll give it 0.8. I think the 0.81 was just a fluke there at the last second. And we'll give it 85 kilometers an hour. So this one is pretty darn fast. If you remember, this is very much the sort of weird oversteery suspension. So maybe that actually has something to do with it. Maybe there is some magic sauce in this setup. We'll give it an actual drive afterwards to see how that handles. And coming in last, torsion beam, which I have the least hopes for. Known for being for cheap hatchback sort of things and being very cheap to make, generally doesn't make for very good handling. But is there maybe some magic sauce to this? Well, let's give it a try. Well, you could knock me down with a feather. That's blipping between 85 and 86. But it was more on 86. So, wow, interesting. Multi-link and pushrod giving the worst results. Those are the most sporty. I'm guessing what happened there is maybe it didn't apply the suspension changes to each thing. To each clone, because there's problems with clones in automation, so that may be a bit of a factor here too. So, now we're actually going to get on to the less quantifiable with numbers part of it and actually go with the feel of a vehicle. And I am expecting semi-trailing arm suspension to be considerably more oversteery than the others. Here's hoping. Now, there's a very big caveat with this next test that we're about to do for suspension feel. It comes down to my skill, and that is not the most consistent thing. So maybe do your own testing, but this is my opinions on the situation. Starting off with the baseline, double wishbone, front and rear, brake, turn in, little bit understeery, that's fine. You can get it turned a little bit, but it really wants to just mostly understeer. And then on the last corner, the Everson S, oh, it's washing out wide. It doesn't really want to come in. And that is that car. All right, interesting. Next up is multi-link. Double wishbone in the front and multi-link in the rear. Braked a little too early, that's fine. Still quite understeery. Oh, because I didn't take the same racing line, I wasn't able to get the same results, but it still feels unsatisfactorily understeery, which is disappointing, but overall, I think it feels exactly the same. Where'd the other car go? I swear I left it here. What the hell? Oh, it ended up down here somewhere, somehow. That's weird. No wonder I didn't see it. It's very small. Anyway, McPherson strut. Get it turned in. Oh, it wants to dive hard under braking. That could be a brake balance issue. No, this thing just feels really understeery now. It does not feel anywhere near as sharp. How did it get the higher G rating marks? Weird. Maybe you just have to drive this one different. So let's try it again in full sweat mode. Nah. This thing just understeers a lot more than the other ones. Oh goodness. So lighter? Yes. Cheaper? Definitely. But better? No, not really. This is quite dull on the front. Oh my. Well, that's McPherson strut. Don't buy. Oh, that wasn't meant to happen. Push rod now and see how this one deals with things. Brake on my braking point. Turn in. It feels a lot more stable, but still quite unappealing for turn-in. Now, I've chosen front-wheel drive so then I can have more suspension choices, but I really should compare push rod against the other ones. But unfortunately, it looks like double wishbone, so it just kind of feels like double wishbone, but maybe just a little bit more dull. It's really hard to tell accurately what this one is like. I just didn't feel better. If anything, maybe it felt just a smidge bit worse. So maybe one day I'll go do rear-wheel drive comparisons of all of the suspensions. Semi-trailing arm now. Brake, turn in. Oh, really weird. That was super. You know what? I'm gonna retry that one. Kind of thought that this one might do better with trail braking, but oh god, am I going faster? What's happening here? Let's try that again. They all have exactly the same brake balance. Brake a little bit sooner. Turn in. It does actually feel a little bit like it wants to oversteer. I was trying to induce oversteer. That's why that happened. So let's try that again. Brake a little bit sooner. Get turned in. Oh, this is... I wonder if brake balance will help tune whatever this weird understeer is that we have. No, still understeer here. It's weird. It kind of wants to go sideways. You can see it like wobbles out sideways, then comes in for just a big waft of understeer. And then, oh wow, that turns around a lot easier than the others when you're going around. Interesting. Keep that in mind. This one is different, and I think with maybe different brake tuning, this one might do a little bit better. Now for the bargain basement version. Bring it into the first of the Everson S's. And did I miss my braking point? What's happening? Let's try that again. Brake nice and early, get turned in. Man, there is something weird about the braking in this car. And turn is, you know, this doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel great. It just doesn't feel bad. It just feels mild. Maybe in this current setup, just a smidgen bit better than double wishbone, I feel. Interesting. I think the biggest takeaway here is choose the realistic suspension and try to make that work. So you're not choosing suspension so much for handling, but for their use case. For instance, torsion beam is meant for really low floors in non-rear-wheel drive vehicles for like hatchbacks and whatnot. Fantastic for it. Then tune it. Same with all of these other cars. Pick what is right for the application. I was kind of really hoping that I was going to come away with like a definitive, this one is better. But I didn't really. For instance, McPherson strut was really, really understeery, but yet it got the highest scores on the turning test thing with the G meter and everything. I don't understand. maybe it's because the suspension didn't update when I clicked the sport suspension thing, and maybe that changed it at some point? I don't know, but it's weird. Anyway, this has been a particularly short episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's been informative. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thank our channel members. Mwah, mwah. Love you all. There's currently 2 videos up on the tier of membership subscription thing. If you want to check those out, they're extended cuts of the build and race races I've done so far. There will be more stuff going up. But for now, if you've liked this, subscribe, like button, comment. English is failing me. But for now, I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.